G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Trying to make a movie that apparently doesn't want to be made. A year ago they finished cooking me head. Took them 7 weeks. 87.5% of enough radiation to kill a normal person, but it all went through a small part of me. And I'm still here. Probably should have been pushing up daisies a year ago. 9 months ago I had a PET scan that said I'm okay. Complete metabolic response. Yesterday I went to Armidale for a CAT scan. 12-month progress CAT scan, and nobody looked too scared or surprised with what they saw, whereas, like a year ago when I went down there with a potato-sized evil twin hanging out the side of my neck, they all looked at me like, ooh. So yeah, that was yesterday morning, and on the way there I had to visit an insurance company and pay them some money because I'd run up the back of somebody else's car, and instead of inviting me to the panel beater to talk to the panel beater, pay what it costs to effectively repair the car, they got their insurance company to pay the panel beater to make the car look as good as new. So the $1,500 damage that I thought I did blew out to $2,700, and I couldn't understand $1,200 of it. But the assessor looked at the pictures and okayed it, and then when they started doing the job, they found that there was a whole lot of other stuff that they hadn't been aware of. That one blew it out to $3,940. So I rang up to complain about $1,200 worth of the initial job because I didn't think that needed to be there. And eventually they agreed to accept $3,400. So they wanted $3,940, and I got them to accept $3,400. Meant I had $540 in my hot little hand, which I had previously written off. I asked them to reduce their bill by 23%, and they reduced it by 13%. I didn't do too bad in the grand scheme of things, judging by what happens when you ring up an insurance company to whinge at them. So I went to the outdoor shop in Armidale, and I had been thinking it'd be nice, maybe perhaps, to have one of them belt pouch tools. Open up to become anything from a pocket knife to a pair of pliers, with a lot of other funny things depending on the particular make and model. And I'd seen such a thing in Bilo for about $20, and I reminded myself not to buy it because cheap Chinese landfill in cheap shops is generally crap. Every now and then you get something that's real good. Most of the times you get something that can be made to work if you baby it, maybe repair it, maybe fix the problem. Like that chainsaw of mine. Fix the problem and it works. A lot of other stuff, it's just throw out grade, manufactured purely to maintain a job for the people on the assembly line and take your money away from you. So I went to the outdoorsy shop, and what they had was a box that looks like that. When you look up the end of it, what it says there is Wave Plus stainless nylon sheath, made in USA. And say what you like about the Americans, they make good tools. Trouble is they charge like bloody wounded buffaloes. $250 to be an upgrade on about a $25 Chinese pocket knife, which works just fine. So it comes in a fancy nylon sheath, branded so that everybody knows you've got a real one. I don't know whether that's a good idea or not, because that means you're the bloke who might be worth robbing, doesn't it? Like I said, it's a fancy sheath. Look at the size of that press stud. And although you can remove the knife one-handed, I'm not going to try and show it to you because I haven't got three hands and I'm holding the knife in one, the camera in the other. And out she comes. And watch this. It's a one-handed lock knife. That little bit there, which my thumb is resting on, that is the unlock button for that blade. Turn it over, and you've got a bread knife ground knife blade, razor sharp, also with its own little lock button. All right, this one here And this one here, they actually require sticking a fingernail in the end of them to get them to come out, revealing an absolutely amazingly vicious wood saw with 2 rows of teeth. And the teeth, I don't know whether you can see it, but there's 2 different heights. There's a tall tooth and there's a low tooth, and there's a tall tooth and there's a low tooth. So yeah, it's a wild sort of a saw, and maybe you can see what I mean looking at the shadow. Hard to get any idea of what I'm actually showing on this tiny little screen here. But yeah, isn't that a Bobby Dazzler? And here's a feature that's really cute. The back of the saw blade is thinner than the actual width of the saw teeth, so it should not get stuck in the cut. And opposite to that is actually a nail file with a toenail rasp and an emery board. See the little diamondies glittering on the face of it. And then we have the iconic needle nose pliers with replaceable cutting edges on the wire cutters, and they're in 2 different sizes, allegedly for the really hard wires go in close to the axis and the softer wire goes further out. And it says there's supposed to be a cable cutter in there where my finger is, but I can't actually see that there's anything that would cut a cable. That must be for a different model, perhaps. And then there's other stuff stored in the ends. Not only, but also if you get it sort of carefully aligned so that those 2 bits of metal there actually contact each other, and if you've got it in the correct orientation, then along that top and bottom surface there, you've got an 8-inch or 20 centimetre ruler. So you can make simple primitive measurements. While in there are 3 tools on the axle, and they all have a locking release bar. We have a pair of scissors, spring loaded, which will not release until you push that release bar. We have a thing which is either a fairly crude blade screwdriver, or it's what they call a spud for opening paint tins. At least that's what I can make out of it. And once again, yeah, you got to push the release to get it to come down. And then in the middle there's this little thing which is going to be really kind of difficult to show you. It's a blade on one end. It's a Phillips head on the other end. You can pull that out and reinsert it back the other way. And the theory is this is a screwdriver for fixing the screws at the corner of your eyeglasses. While up at the other end, we only have 2 on the pivot. But on the right hand side there, what you've got is a knife-edged can opener, which will probably open crown top bottles of the old-fashioned style. And that screwdriver there is a flat blade, which is also removable and held by spring tension, provided by that little spring on the side there to hold it in place in its socket. Thus, so $250, and I do not feel ripped off. I would call that money more or less well spent. And then, because my head torches are both getting pretty old and pretty tired, specifically the headbands are no longer strong enough in the elastic, and they're both disposables, I thought I might just go for a rechargeable head torch. So I came home with a thing called a LEDLENSER MH10 Outdoor Series. Advanced focus system, smart light technology, rapid focus. Marketing jism is strong on this one. The lightest LEDLENSER headlamp in its brightness category for those who seek extremes in the outdoors, equipped with colour filters, USB charging and constant light mode for particularly constant light output. a pouch, a set of rechargeable batteries, USB cable, colour filter set. 7-year warranties if you register online, otherwise 5 years. And it looks lovely. It has lots of wonderful features. You can get it to look straight down off your forehead, just like the El Cheapo. You can get it to stick the lens out in front of the LED and get a telephoto effect. It has a rechargeable battery in a dingle dangle that hangs off the back end of your head in order to balance the weight of it. And good thing this, you can remove the bloody battery and replace it in your rechargeable head torch. Didn't think much more about that. Come home, put it on, chop the firewood, used it on full bright. Was amazed at how bright it was. And then recharged it and was amazed that it took about an hour to recharge after a 10-minute firewood exercise. Golly gosh, that wasn't quite so satisfactory, was it? So today we have a look at what it actually says on the box. And what we say is power 600 lumens, 150 metres, run time 10 minutes. Mid power 250 lumens, beam distance 100 metres, 15 minutes. Low power 10 lumens, 20 metre beam distance, 120 minutes. So it's actually designed for 2 hours at low power. And all I can say to that is, well, in that case, it's a terrible good thing that this one that costs $9.95 at Bilo and has a magnet on the back, and which is also USB rechargeable. It takes a lithium ion battery, 4.4 watt hours, 3000 milliamp hours. So this has got a battery half the size of this one. So to be honest, really the only way of feeling like I'm not completely snookered, ripped myself off and wasted $200, 2 hours at low power is not actually that bloody flash when it's all said and done, is that here, what we're looking at is 2 more of them. And there's another 2. So these 2 equal that, and these 2 equal that. So I can probably get 45 minutes at half power, or I could get 30 minutes at full power. It's actually bloody difficult to feel that I haven't wasted money on that. I would have been better off just buying bloody new elastic and putting them on the old ones and sticking with disposables. But come the day when there's no more disposables available in the shops, at least this system will work, and at least I've already got these old batteries left over from the Vapouriser experiment. And this thing, from experience, is good for about an hour on the Fireground on its one little battery. Because this is what I used when I was videoing Nightburn tutorial 2023 Fireground number 18. It works quite well. We'll see how we go with this other very expensive. Hope it's not a dud. But yeah, I'm bloody disappointed to see how short the battery life is. But there's no such thing as a free lunch. You know, you can't get a super bright head torch with a battery the size of your little finger and expect it to last for more than 10 minutes, apparently. Such is life. Okay, so we have one sensible purchase which seems to be good, and we have one that's not quite as good as I thought it was going to be. I won't quite say that I'm disappointed, but yeah, I'm not as pleased as I was before I read that bit on the side of the box, and I didn't do that till this morning. So let's go to an indulgence, because I know a certain particular 62-year-old zombie who hasn't bought a new big knife for himself pretty much ever. Not a you know, a seriously big wave it around and you know, feel like you're going to be stupid type thing, because When I was 6 years old, my grandmother gave me an actual full-size Bowie knife, and I've still got it. It's probably on its third sheath, which is just about at the point of throwing away. It's on its second handle. I made that out of honey locket, and it's doweled on with honey locket dowels. It takes a good edge, but it doesn't really hold a good edge, because when I was about 13, I ground it against a bloody electric grinding stone and got the steel hot enough to bugger its temper. So it's not in perfect condition, but if you're prepared to sharpen it after every time you use it, and I don't use it very often, yeah, I've done a lot of work with this over the years. I wasn't allowed to actually pull it off the wall and play with it till I was about 12, but yeah, I thought, why not? I'll shout myself a new knife. So I went to the Black Mountain Roadhouse, and they got a cupboard full of big stupid knives, and one of the slightly less stupid ones was this one, and I decided, as absolute indulgence, I'll buy it. Now, note, it comes with a scabbard. It's a pretty well-made scabbard, and it's got a sharpening stone. It might be the most expensive sharpening stone I ever bought, depending on how good the knife turns out, but it's got a sharpening stone in its pouch. There were a few other knives that were big and fancy and looked really lovely, but they had places in their pouch for accoutrements that were not there. This is what I come home with. That's 2 shoelaces. I figured out how to make them go on there and stay on there like that. They had one there and they had one up at the other end, and it looked really bloody silly, and I couldn't see it was functional. That, I think, is intended to look like a screwdriver as well as be a hilt. So yeah, it's a multi-tool, and I think that is fantasised as being a screwdriver as well. It's a good effort. This is aluminium, and I'm a little bit concerned because I don't think there can be any much more than a finger width worth of attachment surface between the blade and the handle. So I'm hoping that it is finely threaded and then glued. It may be just glued, because it is a cheap Chinesium knife from a roadhouse. Right? It's not like the $250 American-made Leatherman. It's got a great big shiny blade. We come over here, we see that it says rust-free stainless. So without thinking too much about the likelihood of a Chinaman counterfeiting a German stainless steel mark, that might be a good sign. I don't know. On there, I don't know whether you can see, it says Jungle Survivor, which is, it was actually, that was going close to the least pretentious of the things that have been sandblasted as slogans onto the knife blades in that shop. All the other ones had a sandblasted signature that said John Rambo. I'm not that pretentious. A knife that says it's supposed to be to survive in the jungle, yeah, why not? Let's see. First thing is, that is a fish scaler for large fish with large scales. They then get to have a bit of a finer point on them, like they're blunt and they're sharper. So I think it's got a 2-stage fish scaler. Well, that's a nice touch. And then we get more of this cylindrical ground bread knife business. So that's the actual functionality of the knife. If it is going to turn out to be functional, we don't know. Then there's the funny, silly buggery gimmicks. You see the O-ring there? And the knurled grip? That would be because it's threaded. Off it comes, and what it reveals in its class, bearing in mind we're talking about button compasses in the cap under the handle of a knife. That's actually a good one. It's got, I think, is it? No, it's not a liquid damped compass, but it seems to be well sealed. It hasn't got any shit in there, and it'll probably stay clean and clear and bright because not much ultraviolet gets inside the handle of a knife. But anyway, yeah, it's got a compass, and the compass's response to the blade suggests that it might not be stainless steel. It might have stainless steel plated over the top of ordinary mild steel because it's got a pretty fair magnetic field. And then we have this. And inside there, we have this little bundle of cuteness, which seems to consist of one of those braided cable saws, which if you don't use them exactly correctly, they will break them probably on the second or third pull. We have some fish hooks in large and small. We have some split shot. We have some fishing line, and we have a sewing needle. So, yeah, it's a nice gimmick. I'm thinking it might be a more realistic option to roll $100 note around that and stick it on the outside to stop it from rattling. And then you got money to buy an Uber out of the jungle that you couldn't be bothered surviving in. But anyway, yeah, this was $140 worth of pretentiousness, which I just couldn't resist at the time. Because after all, it was money that I did not have to give to the insurance company. So therefore, it doesn't really matter if the head torch isn't quite what it was cracked up to be, and if the knife is largely decorative. Because the Leatherman works, and I had the fun of beating an insurance company. Then going and buying something bright and shiny with the money thus won. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Such is life. A year after completing my treatment for cancer of the mouth. Tonsil cancer was, I think, the cytological diagnosis. Life's a learning curve. And now I have 3 new toys. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.